All right, everyone. The other day, Cory Booker escorted 5 migrants into the United States that I think had been deported in the first place, illegal immigrants, all females, and he talked about, well, these women have been victimized along the way, like they've been, physically assaulted, like attacked, raped, stuff like that, trafficked. And he brought him into the United States along with like immigrants' rights attorneys and stuff like that. And he's like, "Oh, it's big optics win for Cory Booker." It's opportunistic. He doesn't actually care about these people. There is no Democrat in the field, I think. Well, Williamson might because she's stoned all the time. Other than hippie mom Williamson and something like that, none of these other Democrats give a fuck about immigrants. Just like they don't give a fuck about the poor. Bernie Sanders does not care about the poor. He cares about lining his pocket, maintaining power, and being a career politician. And that's really all. I don't have any respect at all for these people. But here's the thing. Cory Booker wanted to tell the sob story about these women being, attacked and cartel beating them up and sexually assaulting them and stuff. It's all very sad. And it's like, of course. Nobody, at least sane people, don't want to see women assaulted and raped and stuff like that. The problem is that he ignored the fundamental underlying cause of why those attacks are happening in the first place. They're happening because the Democratic Party has told everyone in South and Central America, come to the United States. You can't be deported. You can't be turned away at the border. We can't determine where you're from, so we'll give you asylum. There's no safe third country. Anyone can come in, and you will be the same as anyone else. We no longer reward people for trying to legally immigrate into the United States. We're just a melting pot, and we don't have a border anymore. Just fucking come across. The problem is that what the Democrats here didn't understand is that a bunch of people from 1,000 miles from the border were going to come through. They would organize into caravans and storm the border very visibly. This causes a rise in xenophobia among Americans, who rightfully so believe that this might have a little bit of an economic impact, which is not entirely wrong. And number two, cartel said, wow, a bunch of people who don't know the lingo are going to be coming through in large numbers. They're going to be crossing the border, a porous border. Why don't we use them as drug mules? Why don't we rape them along the way? I mean, no, who's going to protect them? The Mexican government? They're not Mexicans. They're a bunch of illegals. They're even illegally here. Nobody's gonna fucking protect them. We can kill them. We can rape them. We can enslave them. We can steal their goddamn kids and bash their skulls in and bury them in a shallow grave. And there's nothing any goddamn fucking person in Mexico or the US can do about it. Their own governments are so weak they can't get involved. You think the Guatemalan government or the Panamanian government or certainly the Venezuelan government gives half a fuck about their own citizens? They don't give a shit. Oh, go ahead and leave. Yeah, it's a great way for them to rid themselves of an unemployment rate that's high because of socialism. Yeah, yes, go ahead, please. Yes, go through Mexico. Go on a skeleton train or whatever they call it, death train. Go to the U.S. border. They want you. Uncle Sam wants you. We don't give a fuck. Hail socialism. So the socialist countries that have ruined their own economies get to lose their unemployed, and Mexican cartels get to rape everything that moves, which happens. 40% of the women making this trek are raped. More than half of them are sexually assaulted. This is a huge issue. And people like Cory Booker want to cry crocodile tears and pretend to care about these women and children, and they don't give a goddamn fuck. They don't care. Cory Booker sits there with these women giving practically a full-on press conference about evil man, orange man bad. Think of the children, think of the women. Think of the children, but not the way that Biden does, says Cory Booker. Now, yeah, I do think of the women and children. They wouldn't have tried to come across the border in the first place, making the trek, getting attacked, getting raped or whatever, if it weren't for people like you telling them that it was okay. The American people never told you it was okay to insinuate that to the world. What you should have done is strengthen the border and use pressure on these countries to try to get them to become more prosperous so you won't have asylum seekers and migrants by crushing leftism. And that's what the Democrats will never do because it indicts them as screwy. It indicts them as economically backwards. They're following economic ideologies from the 19th century. They're not living in the modern time of free markets and prosperity and capitalism, which is the way of the future. Not socialism, not communism, not intervened in economies with priming the pump and all of the minutia and bureaucratic regulation of the past. It's no longer necessary. The world is interconnected through communication structures in such a way we would arguably be better reducing 90% of the world's government power to nothingness, privatizing everything, and creating a second constitution to govern private entities. Because it's a lot more efficient, it's a lot more humane, and it allows people to have their own self-determination. That's what we should be doing. But instead, Cory Booker wants to cherry pick some women that were raped along the way here and say, oh, look at how evil the orange man is. He won't protect migrant women. But those migrant women never would have been victimized that way if you and people like you hadn't signaled to them, yes, you should hike this 1,500 goddamn fucking miles to our border and we'll let you in. All you have to do is put your child on your back and wander across the border. Yes, you have to walk 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles, get raped 5 times on the way. Maybe you get turned into a drug mule at the border, but once you go through all of that hell, then we will allow you to be legally in this country and we'll kind of leave you alone. That's not humane. That's not caring about women and children. That's the opposite. That's being an opportunistic jack-off. And that's exactly what Cory Booker is, by the way. Thankfully, Cory Booker will never be a top-tier candidate. Even after a good debate performance, his metrics barely moved. He gained like half a point of support, maybe. Still, nobody cares about who he is. Being able to get fiery in your tirades against evil orange man in the White House and grandstanding with some migrant women that you helped cause the problems of by being an open borders enthusiast doesn't impress many people. It doesn't even impress the leftists. No, what would have impressed them is if it were 1,000 women and you were dressed as Jesus Christ shouting about how you were the new Messiah and borders are evil. That would impress people on the far left. Cory Booker's milquetoast, watered-down liberal bullshit isn't going to impress anybody. It's just going to piss people who are still rational off. It pisses me off that there are still people that are dumb enough to take this sort of publicity stunt seriously. No, you want to help those women? Help them in their own countries. Why don't we help their countries transition from the 1800s onto the modern era where there are concepts like a free market and free trade? Why don't we do that so that they can prosper on their own? Yes, they're definitely, the free market doesn't help anyone. Guess what? If 90% of your population is generally doing okay, usually you can subsidize those that are having problems. That's what you do in a proper economy. Under socialism, most of your population is unemployed or fucked up in some way, and there's no longer enough money to subsidize all the misery. That's the problem. That's why everyone wants to come here. Because all of these other countries, for the most part, they're not developed. They don't have a welfare system. If we eliminated that, I bet 90% of these people wouldn't bother trying to come here. I bet you anything that they wouldn't. And those that want to come here for work, which is the case with many of the Central American migrants that are coming, certainly, they're coming because the Democrats invited them, said, yeah, get raped several times, then we'll let you into the country, number one. And go ahead, come across the border with cocaine in your snatch. That's Cory Booker's idea of humane. That's what the Democrats want for the world. They want people to they want their cocaine to have been inside a vagina before they snort it in D.C. Because they're perverts, probably. That's about all. Peace out.